Welcome to Sports Wars and Sports Picks, predictions and previews of the NFL divisional round of the playoffs. As always, remember to like, share, and subscribe the content here at Sports Wars, whether you're watching on YouTube, Rumble, Locals, or anywhere else. And if you want high-quality picks for the most affordable, accessible platform of any handicapping service in the country, there is none better, in my humble opinion, than sportspicks.locals.com. So let's go to the divisional round of the playoffs. Up first on Saturday, Jacksonville travels to Kansas City. Kansas City, the Chiefs are favored by 9, upwards of 9.5 to 10 at some sports books, still hovering below that double-digit ratio, with a total of around 53. About 70% of the money is on the Chiefs. About 60% of the tickets are on the Chiefs, according to wagertalk.com. The Chiefs are looking at returning once again to the AFC Championship game that they have been repeatedly present in during the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes era. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars are here for the first time in a bit of a while, with their extraordinary upset comeback after being down 27-0 at home to win last week against the Los Angeles Chargers. That led to the Chargers firing their offensive coordinator, which seems kind of odd because that didn't seem to be the core of the problem, but that's another story for another day. Your thoughts, Cody?
Well, yeah, I agree. It didn't necessarily seem to be most of the problem, but getting 4 interceptions and only coming away with 27 points, including your offensive output for the half, seemed a little low to me. A lot of people over this last weekend were talking about the future of the NFL and how Justin Herbert is clearly so much better than Lawrence, and I'm not sure that's the case. Lawrence, awful start, comes out and throws 4 picks. Looks real bad for all of us out there who had bet on the Jaguars, thinking, "Oh Lord, have mercy! Here we go." But if he could settle down, he can play great. That's what I kept saying throughout the half to my buddy Ease. I was sitting there watching the game. And I'm like, if he can settle down, they can come back. Of course, he settles down, throws 4 picks to match his interception output, and they come back and win the game. I'm not so sure that Herbert is the next big quarterback in the league. Yes, he's great. Yes, he's good. But Lawrence, to me, I think he's going to be the guy in the future of the NFL. I think he's going to be what Mahomes is right now, what Josh Allen is purporting to be right now. I think he's going to be the guy in the future of the NFL. So 8.5 for me seems high. Now, if you can get it out of one of the sports books at 10, I'm probably going to jump off that. I'm really on the edge here at 8.5, but I like Jacksonville. I don't think they're going to win this game. I think the Chiefs are going to continue their run here and make it to the AFC Championship. But 8.5 is just high. Even at home, the Chiefs scoring that much more than the Jaguars seems not plausible to me. So I would lean towards the Jaguars. If you can get it at 10, I'm probably going to jump on that.
Yeah, interesting team totals here. You have Kansas City at 30.5, which is a little bit high. And you have Jacksonville at 20.5, which strikes me as a little bit low.
Right.
And so going to your point, I mean, in recent years, the divisional rounds, these big favorites have not tended to cover. So the teams with big win ratios and buys have not tended to cover in the divisional round. So Kansas City and Philadelphia during Andy Reid's tenure there was not a playoff covering machine. And so you have, by contrast, Doug Peterson in Jacksonville has been a playoff covering machine. People forget how he got to win that first Super Bowl. He did it with Nick Foles, the only team with an average quarterback to win a Super Bowl in the modern era since 2004. And here he kept his teams totally cool with a massive deficit, to lead to one of the greatest comebacks in the history of the game, because he has an even keel and he's a smart offensive mind. Now, of course, he is himself a former Andy Reid guy, so it'll be an interesting matchup in this game. Wanted to see what your thoughts were on some prop bets that people might want to look at. One factor they talked about just briefly at Pro Football Focus is that Jacksonville is the worst defensive team against tight ends in the entire league. And so that might look good for some Travis Kelce props.
Yeah.
And it's because their linebackers are just not very good.
Correct.
But what are your thoughts?
No, you're absolutely right on point there. Travis Kelce over 81 yards, I think, is a lock. It's 80.5, I believe, on FanDuel, as well as an anytime touchdown score. I'm grabbing those right off the bat for sure. Travis Kelce, anytime touchdown score, because he's going to use Kelce as much as he can anyways throughout the game, no matter what. But the fact that the linebackers are so bad and they're so poor at defending the tight end, I really look for him to have a really big game. So I'm looking at the overs for him altogether there. I also like Lawrence over 1.5 touchdowns. I think he'll have a 2 touchdown game, and I think the totals for the rushing are really, really low for the running backs as well. Etienne's set at like 68, which I think is a little low, and then Pacheco. I can't remember the way they pronounce Kansas City's running back's last name there. Hang on just a sec.
One component of this is that if you compare them on like a power rating basis, Kansas City is the best offense from a yard per play metric in the league this season. Jacksonville was good, just not elite at Kansas City 6.4 yards per play, which is really, really high. And Jacksonville at 5.7 yards per play, which is good, top 10 caliber offensive capacity. Again, got better down the stretch of the season. When you translate that into a power rating, that would typically lead to Kansas City being about a 4-point favorite on a neutral site. Leads, if depending on where you place home field is anywhere from 2 points to 4 points in the modern NFL. Used to be much more consistently 3 points or better, but there's been, because of the attention to officials by the fans, and the increasing video broadcast. People forget back in the day when I was growing up, you only had one game on at a time, or maybe 2 at a time. You didn't get to see every game. Now, because of Red Zone, and now because of the NFL all-day Game Pass, and because of all the other options that are out there, a lot more people watch the games. That has led to officials making fewer home favorable calls. And if you really study the NFL, almost all of home field comes from officials. Doesn't come from players playing better or differently typically. There's slight edges there, but those tend to be very small. Tends to be that the holding calls, the interference calls, the illegal contact calls, the late hit calls tend to favor the home team. That has dipped.
The crowd.
But Kansas City historically has one of the biggest home field advantages in the NFL, along with Buffalo in the postseason especially. So my power ratings have the game around 6.5. So I agree with you that 8.5 seems a little high. History would suggest it's a little high. If you really like Jacksonville, you probably like the offense more than the defense. So a Jacksonville team total bet, or some of those individual bets. If you want to spread out your risk, for example, you could take a lot of these individual prop bets, like the Trevor Lawrence touchdowns or passing yards or completions and things of that nature, because as you noted, recently the league, the sports books have been late to catch up to Lawrence's growth in the second half of the season. A lot of them, he was hitting over on a lot of prop bets down the second half, down the stretch of the season, and so I would also note, and we'll talk about this also in connection to Eagles. These lines are clearly designed to get bettors to bet a teaser of the 2 Saturday favorites. Because for those out there who may not know, teaser bet is a parlay bet where you bet for 2 events to both happen. And a teaser bet gives you just different lines. And on average, the typical teaser bet is 6 points in the NFL. So it's called a 6-point teaser. So instead of getting Kansas City 8.5, or 9, you get them at 2.5 or 3. And you can also get 6.5 point teasers. That's the other most common teaser out there. When Vegas doesn't want you to bet a teaser, they make that line a double-digit line to avoid you betting, being able to get a team to win by a field goal. There's also teasers that a push is a win, things like that. When this line stayed at about 8.5 most of the week, and the Eagles line stayed around 7.5, 8 most of the week, Vegas was deliberately inviting gamblers to bet a teaser bet of Kansas City and the Eagles, Chiefs and the Eagles. They want you to bet Chiefs 2.5, Eagles 1.5, Eagles 1, something like that. Now, if you look at the money line odds, those odds are worse than the teaser bet odds. And the straight up spread lines are lines that are on dead numbers. So, 8's not a very common number in the NFL. 9's not a very common number in the NFL. So what Vegas doesn't want you to do is bet the Chiefs on the spread. What they don't want you to do is to bet the Chiefs on the money line or to parlay a money line bet with the Chiefs and Eagles. What they do want you to do is bet the Chiefs and the Eagles on the teaser, which tells you they think these lines are off because they're not inviting you to place a teaser bet. They know 90% of the teaser bets this week are going to be Chiefs and Eagles. 90, it would be my prediction. They're going to have massive exposure. For them to take that big of a risk in the NFL playoffs when there's a lot of money, a lot more money starts getting bet now, tells you that the bookies think that one or both of these lines is actually off.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would agree with that. I'll save that for just a minute when we go up to the next game there, but I'm not too sure about those Eagles either. But going back to the Jaguars, the Chiefs, a lot of people have made a big to do this week about how the Chiefs no longer have that big play capability, which is not the truth. They've got plenty of speed, which speed isn't the only thing that takes those big plays. Tyreek Hill is very unique in what he does. It's not just speed that lends to him being able to make all those touchdowns. Now their yards per play have dipped since last year, since Tariq left, and they spread the ball about more. A lot of people think that's because of him. It partly is, but partly they've redesigned their offense based on who they have. They still have plenty of speed. Sky Moore's a fast guy. Valdez-Scantling's a very fast guy. Juju Smith, very fast guy. All these guys are fast guys, and they could, beat their guy and get those long plays. But they've redesigned their offense to do these more shorter plays, and that's why they have the best offense in the league right now. Is that they're able to get these plays, these yards in very short groupings. Boom, 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 boom. March all the way down the field and score. A lot of people think that's a detriment to them that they're not going to that one play down the field touchdown, and it's not. To me, it's not. But again, I think they'll score a lot, but I think the Jags will too, and I think that you'll have a closer game than 30, 31-20. 30-21, whatever they're predicting here, 30-21, I guess. 32-21, I guess, is what the Vegas is saying the score would be at 53, which is where ESPN has right now. I think they'll score, but I think there's going to be a closer game.
Yeah, and I think, the total is a high total. About, money's evenly split. I think the weather report is it was going to be cold in Kansas City, but I don't know if that's right or not. You can double check that. The closer game time, 40 degrees. All right, so not like freezing, but cool on the cooler side. I look at that total and I think it's about right. I have it around 51. I think it's a little on the high side. If you like it, you might take the first half under. What I recommend here is just don't put the Chiefs in a teaser. I think that's a mistake. If you like the Chiefs, take them on the line, take them on the money line. That's where I'd recommend. If you want to parlay it, parlay a spread, parlay a money line. I wouldn't. The Vegas clearly wants you to bet the teaser, and that's usually a bad sign.
Yeah.
For winning consistently over time. Like I said, power ratings have this around 7. So 9 is definitely 9.5. It's trending, might even hit 10 by game time if the money keeps pouring in on the Chiefs. I do lean the Jags on the spread would be my only clear lean in the game, though I think there might be some real diverse opportunities in prop bets. And I agree on the Kelsey bet just because Jacksonville's been so bad against tight ends.
Yeah, he's going to get his anyways, no matter who he's facing. But I really like the touchdown in this one, but I think over the 81 is going to hit as well.
Up next, the New York Giants travel to a division rivalry for the division round of the playoffs against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are the number 1 seed in the NFC, like Chiefs are the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Giants pulled off the upset last week at Minnesota as they couldn't figure out how to defend Danny Dimes. About 63% of the tickets are coming in on the Giants. The Eagles are favored by 7 and a half almost everywhere. Some places it's sneaking up to 8. The total is sitting at 48, basically predicting something like a 28-20 Eagles win. 60% of the tickets are on the over after the high-scoring game last week in Minnesota. And earlier in the year, the Giants and the Eagles, when they faced off, was also high-scoring because the Eagles blew the doors off the Giants. In the last game of the year, Giants didn't really care too much, and the Eagles struggled to win. Of course, you have Jalen Hurts coming off that shoulder injury. Now he's 2 weeks removed from the last time he's had to play. The Eagles probably benefited more from a bye than anybody because it gives him time to really get that shoulder up to closer to 100%. Won't quite be there. Now, a key factor in this game, from my perspective, once again from a prop perspective, the second worst defense against tight ends in the NFL is, of course, the New York Football Giants. And the underappreciated tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles has been such a popular prop bet. Started off, Goddard, I think, started off at like 41 yards total. It's already getting close to 50. As
over 50.
It's over 50 now. People are pounding it. You almost never see a prop bet move that heavy, and it's because they didn't realize the Giants are as bad, or Vegas just missed that the Giants are bad defensively on this. It's one of the most popular prop bets all week. All kinds of handicappers have been giving it out all over the place, including the boys over at Pro Football Focus. They were even recommending taking him to get over 100 yards at 6-1 odds. So they think he will really torch the Giants. Now the New York Giants, great upset against the Vikings. I was on the Vikings, so I was disappointed in that outcome. Leave it to Cousins didn't get a 1:00 start. By golly, the man can't win. On 4th and 10, he throws a 4-yard out. But the other factor on this game is one of my favorite things to do in the NFL playoffs is to short bad offenses. So I didn't do it last week because it was Tom Brady, but Tampa had one of the worst offenses the worst offense in the entire playoffs because their running game was so inept and incompetent all year. And what's is typically a team in the bottom third of the NFL in yards per play offensively. When they get to the postseason, they tend to get blown out. They occasionally, like the Giants, pull off an upset. Then the next week, they tend to get blown out. And the reason is they don't have a consistent, reliable offense. The Giants can run the ball just fine. Danny Dimes added to that last week with his own runs. But he has been a mediocre quarterback his entire career. Now, he did have a good year this year, but in a majority of his games, he was still below average in terms of his quarterback rating, in terms of his net yards per attempt, by in terms of completion percentage, by a wide range of metrics. He was a below average quarterback again in his best ever season, because before this, he's been just flat bad. The Giants averaged 5.2 yards per play. The Eagles averaged 5.9. And if you make a slight adjustment for when Hurts was out, it's closer to 6.0. That translates into about an 8-point spread, which is exactly where it is. Here again, as we mentioned before, by putting this over a touchdown, Vegas wanted people to bet the Giants, and they wanted the Eagles to be bet on the teaser bet. Because they knew 7.5, that's a perfect teaser bet. 1.5, all they really got to do is win. By the way, not true. A lot of times the game finishes at 1 and 2 in the NFL. But and then the giveaway there is compare a teaser bet, a combined teaser bet, where you think they just have to win, with 1 and 2 points costing you money, and to the money line bet, right? If it's really they just have to win, then the money line parlay should be comparable to the teaser parlay. Here it's not. Basically, the money line parlay is substantially pricier than the teaser. They want you to bet the teaser. So my advice on this game is not to bet the teaser bet. If you like the Eagles, take the line. If you take the money line, that's where to go rather than take the suckers bet. Doesn't mean the teaser won't hit. Everybody's going to be on this teaser. But I'm just telling you, when Vegas does this, it's not a long-term winner. Can win this time, not likely to win the overtime. So those are my sort of loose thoughts on the Eagles Giants. Giants the worst team to make the postseason offensively. Maybe they'll continue their magical run. Maybe they'll find their way back to the NFC Championship game. Maybe the Cowboys will beat the 49ers and we'll have an the NFC least goes to the NFC beast in the NFC playoffs.
Right.
We'll find out. But I lean towards the Eagles money line as the only lean I have on this game. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, to speak on Goddard, I'm jumping all over that because you're absolutely correct. He's been undervalued all year long with the Eagles. It's been a huge target for Hurts all year. With the Giants being so bad and their linebackers and being so terrible against tight ends, jumping all over that, even at 15.5 where it's at now. However, I think you're correct about them wanting you to take the teaser and kind of wanting you to take the Eagles, the Giants, with they giving you that hook there. But this just feels. First of all, I don't trust Hurts coming back from an injury. I'm not sure. I'm just not certain. This feels like a bad game for them. This feels like that what was it, 07 Giants team that snuck into the playoffs and then all of a sudden had that crazy good defense, went all the way and beat Tom Brady as 19-0 team to win the Super Bowl. This kind of feels like that. This is how these Giants teams get there. Not particularly great throughout the season, although they had a hot start early on, beating the Titans and then going 5-0, 6-0, something like that. And then, aside from Geno Smith, Bark, he's close to being comeback player of the year. Saquon Barkley is, if not for Geno Smith. So, but aside from all that, they came in looking pretty not great. Like you said, like worse looking offense aside from Tampa Bay coming into the playoffs. But for some reason, it just feels sneaky to me. I'm staying away from this one altogether, except for that Goddard prop bet. Everything else, AJ Brown, the over 1.5 touchdowns for Hurts, they all look pretty right on par to where they should be as far as what you have to bet to make anything. So I like Dallas Goedert, and I'm going to stay away from the rest of all this altogether because I have no idea what's going to happen in this game. This is one of those games where the Giants could come in and just do what they did to Minnesota.
Yep. I mean, the other way to potentially bet this is to bet under on some Danny Dimes props. The only problem with that is that if you think they're going to get blown out, he may go over a lot of those props in an attempt to recover. So maybe you take a Barkley under. Maybe you do that if you think, the Giants are going to get behind in this game, have to throw the ball. Maybe that's an approach. Those are some other angles that you can potentially take in the prop bets. Now we move to the 2 Sunday games. The big one up at noon at Vegas time, 3:00 Eastern time, is the big game that everybody's really looking forward to, though the game in the latter half of the Sunday schedule is a historical matchup of two old, great NFC rivals in the Cowboys and the 49ers. But the first one up is the team that almost won the Super Bowl last year, the Cincinnati Bengals, in a rematch of the game canceled from a few weeks ago after the sudden collapse of the Buffalo safety at the Buffalo Bills. Now, as old Chris Berman used to say, nobody circles the wagons at home like the Buffalo Bills. And I think, if I recall correctly, there's something like 13-1 at home in the postseason. Josh Allen has never lost at home in the postseason. Now, it's a perfectly aligned situation for Bills backers because the Bills are coming off winning but not covering a bunch of games, including at home against a third-string quarterback in the playoffs against the Miami Dolphins last week. The spread started out at 3.5. It's now up to 5.5, trending towards 6. That is despite the fact that pretty much every sports book says 60 to 75% of the tickets are on the road underdog Joe Burrow Bengals. The total has hovered. It started out at 50, 51, dropped down to 49, now at 48.5. I can tell you what that's about. It's called weather. They're talking about, it's going to feel like about 20 degrees out there, but also they're talking about wind in the double digits. And if you dig into the schematic matchup, having watched some Bengals and Bills fans this week that did a deep dive into the game, everybody's saying the same thing on both sides. What does Cincinnati want to avoid defensively? Big plays from Josh Allen. What the Bills want to avoid defensively? Big plays from Joe Burrow. Well, if both of these teams play a shell defense and force both teams to drive, that's going to eat up the clock and drive down the total. So while over 60% of the money is tickets are on the Bengals, over 60% on the over. People just look at this game and they think Burrow, Allen, Bills, Bengals. It's going to look like Chiefs Bills last year, which people forget didn't go over actually until late in the game, and then it went wildly over. And this is the one everyone's looking forward to. This is a Super Bowl caliber matchup in the Bengals and Bills, and it's extraordinary. If you would have told me 5 years ago everybody's going to be pumped about the Bengals and the Bills in the postseason, I've been like, I don't think so. But that's where we are, thanks to Burrow and Allen and these two quality coaching staffs. Now, I look at this game and I would say again from a yard per play perspective, Buffalo 6.1, second best offense in the league. The Bengals 5.5. Why the difference? Well, there's really, when you look at these teams, while everybody's talking about the beat-up Bengals offensive line, the problems they had last year, how they may cause problems again this year, one of the fascinating things about this season was a return to relevance of the running game, something that has almost disappeared in the past happy NFL era. Some of the Tom Brady New England Patriots Super Bowl winners were some of the worst rushing teams in the league. It just didn't matter. But now in a Gary Kubiak, falsely claimed to be Mike Shanahan's offense. It wasn't. It was Gary Kubiak's offense. And with all these Gary Kubiak derivatives across the league, you're starting to see teams their offensive success heavily depend on the running game. San Francisco, almost anybody can play quarterback because in part of that dominant running game, setting up all those plays. Miami revolutionized with its running game, whereas teams that couldn't run the ball, even with elite quarterbacks or Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, like the Rams, like the Packers, like the Bucks, guys like Brady and Rodgers, already out, not even in the divisional round of the playoffs, was because their teams just couldn't flat run the ball much of the year. Well, why did the Bengals start off 0-2? Why have they struggled down the back half of the stretch of the season in part offensively? They are one of the worst rushing teams in the league. By contrast, why did the Bills stay as an elite offense even when Josh Allen goes up and down at times? They're one of the best rushing teams in the league. Now, that's in part thanks to Josh Allen himself. But what that tells you is the real big difference between these teams is only one thing: running the game. Cincinnati, Bengals, one of the worst. Bills, one of the best. And given that everybody on both sides of the fan analysis believes both defenses are going to play a conservative defensive style, that puts a premium on running the ball. And that is why in this game, I lean towards the home Buffalo Bills against the public, and I have a slight lean toward the under, though it's very terrifying to bet the under with these two quarterbacks playing. Those are my main thoughts in terms of prop bets. Under Bengals rushing totals of key players is where I lean. But that's where I lean. What are your thoughts?
Oh, same exact thing. One of the big reasons is La'el Collins has been the right tackle for the Bengals has been out since week 16 with a torn ACL. The Bengals ruled out today Alex Kappa, left tackle, and Jonah Williams, left tackle Jonah Williams and right guard Alex Kappa. So they're not messing with their left tackle, right tackle, and their right guard. Now, this is a team who he did break a record last year in beating the Titans after being sacked 9 times in the game. But that's not a repeatable type of record. You know what I mean? I think there's going to be a lot of sacks in the game. I think they're going to have real struggles running the ball, and I think that's going to benefit the Bills in a huge way. So I love the Bills here, and again, I love looking at some of those rushing under totals for some of those Bengals players mixing and so forth, because without this line, they're not going to be. They improved a little bit this year. They still had problems with people getting to Burrow, but they improved tremendously from last year. But with these guys out, bad news for the Bengals.
Yeah, exactly. And then when it comes to coaching, I give a slight edge to McDermott. When it comes to home field, again, the Bills have one of arguably the best home field in postseason history in the NFL, which has continued even to the modern era. This is the biggest sharp play of the week. When you see a line go from 3.5 through a key number of 4, all the way up now to approaching 6 in the postseason, when the public is hammering the Bengals at every single sports book, it means some very sharp, smart money, wise guy cash that the bookies really respect is on the Buffalo Bills. So the my free pick of the week here at Sports Wars and the Sports Pick sponsored show is the Buffalo Bills, even at -5.5 on the line. My power ratings have them at -7. I think they should, so I liked it a lot better at 4 than I like it at 5.5. But 5 is mostly a dead number in the NFL. So you get it under 6, you're probably going to cash. Up next, the finale, the old historic rivalry. The Dallas Cowboys travel to San Francisco to face the 49ers, where tickets are going for as much as $10,000 a pop to see a divisional round playoff game. Why? Because this rivalry has history for those who remember it. With some great matchups. Is Brock Purdy the real deal? Is Dak Prescott back off the pine after blowing out Tom Brady in Tampa Bay? Well, the line has moved from 3.5 to steady in at 4. It's 71% of the tickets at Wager Talk are on San Francisco. In some other places, the tickets are heavily on the Cowboys. So it depends on where you're at as to where the money is coming in. I believe, in part, Wager Talk heavily tracks Vegas, where there's a lot of 49er fans. My guess is if you looked at the sports books on the East Coast, you're going to find in the South, you're going to find a lot of Cowboy tickets coming in. They all love the over because it's at 46.5, basically predicting like a 25-21 kind of game. And my guess is that probably one of the biggest bets of Cowboy bettors this week is the Cowboys over. They think Dak Prescott will go in there. And look what he did to Tampa. He's going to do the same thing to those mighty 49ers, who feature one of the top 5 pass defenses in the league, one of the top 5 pass rushes in the league, one of the top 5 rush defenses in the league. The other thing is, who the heck is Mr. Irrelevant? Brock Purdy, third-string quarterback. Is he finally going to get exposed the way the Cowboys exposed the mighty Tom Brady? That's the way a lot of bettors and gamblers are thinking. But the counter to that is you dig into the Kubiak-derived system, and that's the best analogy for where Kid Shanahan got his offensive bones from. Well, remember, when Kubiak was at the Houston Texans, he made a bunch of average quarterbacks look like potential all-stars. People kind of forgot because they didn't make big runs in the playoffs, because they weren't really super talented at the quarterback level, and they often had terrible defenses. But then he goes to Denver, where he made people when he was assistant there, and then assistant with the Vikings. Wherever he is gone, quarterbacks overperform and overachieve. He makes average quarterbacks good quarterbacks. Only guy who's ever done that otherwise has been an Andy Reid derived guy, whether it's Andy Reid or Doug Peterson. So you break down the tape, and I watched Brock Purdy a lot at Iowa State. Brock Purdy was almost tailor fit for a Kubiak-style offense. He's smart, he's poised, he can move around in the pocket, and he can throw well in the run. So those bootlegs on those play actions, they're designed for your Brock Purdys of the world. He handles pressure very, very well. Cut up in the pocket, throw this way, throw that way, and he throws soft with touch. What he doesn't have is all the things the NFL scouts love that led them to think Ryan Leaf was going to be better than Peyton Manning. He's not big. He's not tall. He's not a big, powerful arm. But that's why he had to learn the skills at a young age of throwing with touch, of throwing with accuracy, of throwing with anticipation. Now you break down the tape, and if he was in, as Kurt Warner has pointed out, San Francisco offense probably doesn't work nearly as good if it's a regular drop-back offense. Someone like Kurt Warner wouldn't be a big fan of it. But Brock Purdy probably would struggle in that. You watch him, he throws sometimes a little behind, doesn't always throw perfect anticipation, doesn't always read defenses. But often you don't have to in the San Francisco offense. That's the genius of it. He's got one of the best offensive lines, one of the best power run games, and in my view, unquestionably at this point, the most talented set of offensive skill players, particularly for his offensive scheme because of how utilitarian they are in the playoffs. When you have a guy like
can do
Christian
it all.
McCaffrey. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey. You can line him up in the slot. You can put him in a running back. You can do draws. You can do any kind of. He's like Fred Taylor.
You can have your running back in the slot position while you have your wide receiver back as your tailback and Deebo Samuel, and still have George Kittle to fall back on. I mean, it's insane.
Oh, and Uchek, you know, the fullback slash tight end slash H-back slash. I mean, so you got these guys, and then you still have Ayuk and Juwan Jennings, who can do a bunch of people don't know. Juwan Jennings at Tennessee started out as a quarterback, by the way. So you could throw a tree, he could throw a play to him, and he could pass the ball. So you have a perfectly designed skill set players. You have a quarterback perfectly fit for this. By the way, from almost every statistical metric, the best quarterback in the league for all of his starts is actually Brock Purdy. That may sound insane, but it was. Purdy was even better statistically with the 49ers than Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. So you look at that. I think
smaller sample size, but absolutely.
Absolutely, much smaller sample size. Still questions because of how he, why, all these teams passed over him. Is he really that good? Is he maybe just a flash in the pan? Is he Nick Foles, Eagles when they won the Super Bowl, or is he something else? But if you'd studied him and watched him long enough, and you understand this Kubiak offense, it's not a big shock that he's really doing quite well.
Right.
Whereas Dak Prescott, God bless his soul, has not had good back-to-back games most of the season. That he hasn't gone 2 games without throwing picks. The Cowboys were shorted a lot last week because in part of Tom Brady, but also because they have not been good away from home unless they're playing on turf because they have so many players designed to play on turf. Micah Parsons got beat up last week towards the end of the game. And when you look at their offensive skill players, their running game has not been as dominant, and San Francisco tends to shut down those interior zones that McCarthy likes to run for Dallas. And then you add to that, CeeDee Lamb is the only guy who really scares you for the Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott's past his prime. That's been clear for a while. And that's the history of running backs. No matter how big, how physical, how talented, they just don't last past 5 years these days. There's not a lot of Barry Sanders and Walter Payton's running or Adrian Peterson's running around. And so you aggregate that, and I would say I lean 49ers at home in this one. No lean on the total just because I could see this. One, Vegas is very confident. It's sat at 46.5 all week. The only books that have moved it down. And that's despite massive money and tickets coming in on the over. What they're telling you is San Francisco is going to play it close to the vest. They think, unlike the game last week, San Francisco will get the lead early, and they will shut down the Dallas offense. I think that total is, I would put the total at 48, so I don't have a strong lean on it one way or the other. But I'm not betting against the sharps in the books when they are so confident on this line, given I could very easily see a script that leads to this score total. And remember, Vegas last week got burned with all the overs cashing. And they come back this week with mostly low totals again. That tells you they have double confidence that they're gonna win this week, cashing in on recency bias from last week. So I lean towards the 49ers, but not yet a pick.
I lean pretty heavily towards the 49ers here. Remember last year in the wildcard round, this is the 49ers team that beat the Cowboys 23-17. So we'll let up 17 points out here. I think this defense is better than last year, and the offense is way better than last year. Even though they were pretty incredible watching Deebo and Ayuk and then George Kittle do what they did last year. This healthy Kittle with all the weapons they have now with Christian McCaffrey, holy crap, this team is scary good. So yeah, I'm pretty heavily favoriting the 49ers here, and I'm looking at some of those outputs for some of those skill positions for prop plays. I'm liking the over on quite a few of them. Like you said, with Micah Parsons being banged up, Purdy had 332 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown last week against Seattle. That's insane for a
best
rookie.
ever rookie performance in the playoffs.
Correct. Beat out Sammy Ball's performance from way back in the day. So you see how long that record stood, and that's incredible. So I really look forward to watching this. Micah Parsons said he's not going to underestimate Brock Purdy, but he's a little banged up, so I'm not sure how much he's going to be able to do about it. So yeah, I look for San Francisco to kind of, especially at those elite skill positions, to really kind of hit up some of those marks and hit the over. So I'm definitely going to be real interested close to game time and finding out where those are going to finish up at. I'm liking some of those, and I really like the 49ers here. I'm not too keen on taking the over under, like you said. I think it's 48 is about right where it should be. So at 46.5, it's really close. So I'll probably be staying away from it, but really like the 49ers here and really like some of those skill positions for them, and possibly taking the under on some of those skill positions for the Cowboys, especially their running backs, and maybe just staying away from CeeDee Lamb altogether.
Yep, I think that makes sense. So that's the divisional playoff preview here at Sports Wars. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want the best value in sports handicapping anywhere, profitable in NFL, profitable in college football, profitable in soccer, not only this year, but for the entire length of time that Sports Picks has been there, profitable last year, profitable this year, doubled your money last year, over 50% profit already this year. So you can go to sportspicks.locals.com and subscribe and join today. If you want, you can get a bunch of the content for free. A bunch of free analysis, free insight, daily podcasts, all kinds of write-ups of games, videos for games. Much of that for free. If you want the official recommended picks, that is a that is the most affordable price in all of handicapping out there. So remember, sportspicks.locals.com, and continue to support here at Sports Wars. Thanks, everybody, and let's hope it's another great NFL playoff weekend.
Happy gambling.